All right, welcome to the 21-day Find Your Weight Loss Code, insulin. So in these slides, we are going to be talking about why insulin could be causing weight loss resistance. All right, so let's talk about insulin. Blood sugar and insulin issues are among the most prevalent and physiologically damaging conditions today. That's right. We are seeing a huge epidemic of insulin resistance right now in North America. The negative impacts of chronically elevated insulin, including transient insulin surges, cause damage to virtually every bodily symptom. That's right. Coronary damage, obesity and weight control issues, which is why you are here, neurological symptoms, hormonal dysregulation, hepatic liver dysfunction, fatigue and mitochondrial issues, inflammation, and immune system dysfunction. All right, so insulin resistance and weight loss. Insulin resistance can cause weight loss resistance because the body won't be burning fuel the way it should be. Insulin is a hormone secreted by the pancreas and used to digest carbohydrates. When carbohydrate-rich foods are consumed, insulin is secreted by the pancreas to take glucose from the food to the muscles for energy. Super important. Over time, insulin may fail to work as well as it should. Weight gain, where fat clogs the cells, is one reason, as is a lack of physical activity. Genes can also predispose a person to insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. And as insulin is also a fat-storing hormone, the more of it that circulates in the body, the harder it becomes to burn body fat. Hence, weight loss resistance. High levels of insulin can also make you feel tired, bloated, and crave sugar. Individuals with insulin resistance also tend to have distinct abdominal fat deposits and carry much of their weight around their belly. So testing for insulin resistance. So usually when you go to the doctor and you'll get tested, let's say just for a routine checkup, they usually test glucose measures. And unfortunately, that's not usually the most accurate way to test to see if you are insulin resistant, because what they usually do is do a fasting blood glucose test or just a random blood glucose test. So you want to ask for a C-peptide test. C-peptide shows how well your body makes insulin, which moves sugar or glucose, which is what sugar is, from your blood into your cells. It can tell the difference between insulin your body has made and insulin that you took. So this is very important. It's one of the, you can test C-peptide at any time of the day and get a good reading of whether or not you may be insulin resistant. Hemoglobin A1C is probably my favorite. It is a form of hemoglobin that is measured primarily to identify the 3-month average plasma glucose concentration. So what does that mean? It's telling us an average blood glucose level over the last 3 months rather than just that morning. There are many people that will do a fasting blood glucose, and which is when they wake up in the morning, you go to the doctor before eating anything and they test your blood glucose levels. We've all done it. Or at least you should have been doing it at some point in your life. I know I've done it numerous times. But unfortunately, the fasting blood glucose doesn't always measure what's really going on inside the body. So you may be pre-diabetic or you may even have diabetes, and that fasting blood glucose may not be telling you if that's accurate or not. So you need to get the hemoglobin A1C and the C-peptide test done to get a really good idea of whether or not you have insulin resistance. I highly suggest doing this. There are 3 phases of insulin resistance. So the early phase. So this is the phase where doctors won't even blink an eye at. So early phase is typically caused by elevations in blood sugar and therefore an excessive insulin response. The results on a blood chemistry as low blood sugar and can result in symptoms of shakiness, lightheadedness, and agitation between meals, as well as afternoon sugar cravings and feeling energized after meals. Glucose typically is lower than 85 milligrams per deciliter. With elevated insulin and or C-peptide, hemoglobin A1C is 5.2% or higher. So like I said, if doctors see that, they usually won't even blink an eye at it. Then comes the intermediate phase. The intermediate phase is often characterized by normal blood sugar values on a blood chemistry lab, but is in fact the beginning of insulin resistance due to insulin receptor malfunction. Glucose readings typically 85 to 100 with elevated insulin and or C-peptide hemoglobin. A1C 5.6% or higher. So this is where you want to be intervening. You also want to be intervening on that early stage because you are headed towards the intermediate phase or late phase. So late phase, the final phase of blood sugar and insulin dysregulation, are typically characterized by elevations of glucose levels on a blood chemistry test. This phase will often have relatively significant insulin receptor dysfunction and therefore elevations in blood sugar due to the inability to get glucose into the cells. Glucose above 100 milligrams, hemoglobin A1C above 5.8%, normal or low insulin, which is interesting, and or C-peptide. So any one of these phases, you want to be doing something about it because it will be contributing to your weight loss resistance. Solution. Number one, exercise. I would say number one is actually diet, but on here it's number one is exercise. Research is clear that a combination of cardiovascular and resistance strength training is invaluable in helping to correct blood sugar and insulin dysregulation. Diet, you want to do a ketogenic diet ideally, but you can also do paleo, especially if you're more in the early phases or in between phases. You could certainly get away with doing a low carb paleo until your blood sugar corrects. If you don't find that it's working, it's not low enough in sugar, you may want to switch to the ketogenic diet. For some, if the ketogenic diet is raising cholesterol too much, which can happen, the bad cholesterol, for the rare person, you may want to switch to a paleo-based diet. Lifestyle, really, you have to lower stress. Every time you get stressed out, cortisol goes up, and we're going to talk about cortisol in another episode. But every time you're stressed out, cortisol goes up, and guess what goes up with it? Blood sugar. So super important to start lowering your stress. Meditation, yoga, taking time for yourself. There are so many ways to lower stress, changing your perception. Supplements. You want to, if you can go to the PDF handout that comes with this and download the supplement suggestions, but we're doing berberine, alpha-lipoic acid, carnitine, chromium, banaba leaf, and cinnamon. And you also want to address gut dysfunction, hormones, and food sensitivities, which will all help with lowering blood sugar.